Hello and welcome to today's team brief. My name's David Selwyn and I'm the acting chief exec and I'm joined today by lots of people. So I've got Ali Pearson and Amelia Soklis who are from our EDI team, and then I've got Debbie Kersley who's our deputy chief people officer, and we're going to give some updates on some of our violence and aggression work, and then about a Mars scheme, which you've probably heard a bit about. Before then, I've got some updates, and of course I've got the lovely Liv on the decks, controlling everything. She's got her camera off because she's dead shy, but we've got some general updates. So all healthy ones to start with. So October, we were just saying before we came on this call, October is a busy month, lots happening today. So it's obviously National AHP Day today. So I'll just say welcome and thank you to all of our AHP colleagues, if any of you are on the call. And if not, go and give an AHP colleague a hug in a friendly, supportive way. So Stoptober is also happening in October. That is to try and help colleagues give up smoking. And it's about giving you the motivation. And we know that those people who stop smoking for 28 days, if you stop smoking for a whole month, then you're 5 times more likely to quit. So there's a whole host of resources. We'll put all of this in the chat to help you with that. So there's an app for a dedicated app for NHS staff. There's some free support that you can get. That's behavioural support. There's free nicotine replacement and vapes to try and help you get over the initial few weeks or so. And the idea is to help you lead a healthier life and stop smoking. So again, we'll put all that in the chat. And then, of course, this month we've launched our flu campaign. So the flu season we're anticipating will start early this year. So we've started vaccinating, and many of you have come forward. So we've already vaccinated somewhere around 1,700 colleagues by our peer vaccinators. So that's around not far off a third of the organisation. And I would encourage you to get your vaccine just as soon as you can. We'll put some information again in the Q&A in the chat around some of the videos that we've made talking to one of our patients who was recently in our intensive care, and that's created quite a storm. It's gone viral, been shown, and we've had questions from far across America and across the world about his story. So we'll put that in there, and we'll probably put he was interviewed by both BBC and ITV, so we'll put those links in there for you. Just encourage you to have the flu jab. Lots of myths. We've got some myth busters. You can't get flu from a flu jab. You get a sore arm. That's what you get with a vaccine, but it will help protect you. And the idea of this is to minimize your risk, to help protect you, your colleagues, your family, your patients from actually getting flu and spreading flu and being admitted to a hospital. And of course, there's some incentives with flu. So there's a unison draw where you're entered into, and then the prizes are sponsored by the union. And then there's also this year, for the first time, we're trying to encourage you by putting in some extra days annual leave. So there are 5 days annual leave, so 5 winners, and you go into a ballot to get a day's annual leave if you get your jab before the end of November. So the peer vaccinators are out. They'll if you see them, stop them, and they'll give you a jab in the arm. They're down in the KTC today on the street. They'll rapidly sort you out down there. I don't think they're there tomorrow, but they are there the rest of the week. So we'll again put the information in the chat and where they are in Newark and where they are at the community hospital. The next update I've got is around healthcare uniforms, and we've had quite a lot of questions around this. So the deadline for ordering your new healthcare uniforms is this Friday, and just over half of staff members have submitted the orders, so that leaves quite a lot of you who haven't. And there is quite a lot of chat that we've been raising some of the leaders forums about, well, why are we suggesting people get new uniforms at a time of a financial squeeze that we've currently got. So this is a nationally mandated program. The rationale behind all of that, by it being nationally mandated and procured, is it's actually cheaper than us providing uniforms. So there is an actual saving for us. And just at the moment, you'll see everyone walking around the organisation and around the wards with a whole puree of uniforms. Some people are in scrubs, some people are in scrub tops, some people in scrub bottoms, and of course we pay quite a lot of money to get those scrub tops and to get them laundered and all those sort of aspects. So whilst it may seem slightly counterintuitive that we're spending money on new uniforms, some of this is about the messaging for our patients, and it's that national mandate that we have to comply with. So encourage you to get the new uniforms. And if you don't know how to do that, we'll put a link in who to contact. It's Yvonne Simpson about that. Then the next update is our staff survey. So I've completed my staff survey. It's come from a different supplier this year. It hasn't come from Picker, and consequently it hasn't gone into my spam inbox. It's gone into my normal inbox. It took me about 8 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that to do. It's got some new questions. The importance of this is it gives you a say, and it allows us to listen to what you as members of TeamSFH are saying, and hopefully to make some improvement and to track where we need to make more progress to make things better. We'll touch on some of this as we go on to the conversation today. But the staff survey's out. We've already heard from about 9% of you, or so, around 500-600 voices. So that's great. I keep saying the importance for me on this is that I know that nationally a well-engaged workforce, so people who actually fill in the staff survey, correlates with a quality organisation. So it's really important to do that, and it gives you a voice. You will get reminders. It's completely confidential. We can't track who gets reminders. Those are automated by the company doing it, and you all have a unique identifier, but we can't break the code. So you can put what you like in the comments about that and help direct us to improve things as best we can. So I encourage you to do that. I'm sure Debbie will mention that shortly. And then finally, it's Get Online Week. So recognizing that you're all online currently, but Get Online Week is next week, where we encourage colleagues and our patients and residents to become more digitally competent. So part of this, the digital team are running some stalls and stands throughout the week in the KTC and at Newark. So they'll give you some more information, help you if you're logging on to the NHS app, and help you with all things digital. So that's all my updates, bumper number of updates. So I'm going to move us swiftly on. So I've got Ali and I've got Amelia, who are going to just talk to us about the violence and aggression, the No Hate Here campaign. Over to you both.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for having us on Team Brief this week. And we are actually in National Hate Crime Awareness Week, which is not an event or a campaign that we've previously showcased here at Sherwood. So it's the first time that we're acknowledging that this year, and we are doing so with our new No Hate Here campaign. So we've got some slides to share with you just to briefly summarise what this campaign is and why we're doing this. So if we have a look at our visual, so you'll all be hopefully really familiar with our Expect, Respect, Not Abuse campaign, which is, I would say, quite well embedded in the organisation now. So No Hate Here is a new addition to our Expect, Respect, Not Abuse campaign. And this is about acknowledging that some of our colleagues in the organisation are suffering abuse, and that abuse is as a result of hate towards those individuals, and in particular some protected characteristics that colleagues in the organisation have. So No Hate Here is about showcasing our commitment to all colleagues, to all of our people, that we have workplaces where people are protected from all forms of hate or discrimination, bullying, harassment, abuse and incivility. And it's our commitment to take action on these types of abuse that we're seeing evidence of, but also making sure that colleagues across our organisation, both victims of hate abuse, but also managers who are supporting those individuals, and also the wider team who may be witnessing incidents like this, all know what support is available, and ensuring that access to that support is easy to find. So at the moment on screen, you can see that we've got a visual there. It's currently being shared as a screensaver across the organisation, and you can scan that QR code, and that will take you to the staff abuse pages of the intranet. And certainly if you've not got a phone to hand, if you go to the intranet and type in staff abuse in the search function, it will go straight to the staff abuse pages. You'll get advice there on how to report the incident, and on the left hand side of that page there are links to wellbeing resources which we hope will be helpful. Amelia and I are reviewing those in the coming months to make sure that the support we have is appropriate, and that accessibility is easy for everybody. So where's this come from? Where's No Hate Here come from? So back in 2022, we had a junior doctor who shared their experience of being racially abused by a patient at Sherwood. And in 5 years of NHS service, this was their very first experience of racism. Off the back of that person sharing their lived experience, there were a number of meetings and discussions about how we could approach this, noting that that junior doctor's experience was not an isolated incident. And we launched our anti-racism strategy. And there's a visual of that on screen just to remind you. And I know that some work areas are still displaying these graphics, and please continue to do that, because we want to keep our anti-racism messaging really strong in the organisation. But earlier this year, we undertook a review of the anti-racism strategy, and while we found that there have been some small improvements in the lived experiences of colleagues, and some of the things that we have done to celebrate our global diversity in the organisation have been well received. So for example, our flag artwork that is displayed at all 3 hospital sites, our Reach Out event, which was held just a few weeks ago, these things are really well received by colleagues, and it supports them with that feeling of belonging here at Sherwood. But we acknowledge that we have a way to go. Racism still exists in our organisation, but also when we reviewed our evidence, we can see that there is disproportionate experiences being had by colleagues who identify as LGBTQ+, and also our disabled colleagues. So this is the evidence that we looked at in terms of how do we approach these matters moving forward. We looked at our staff survey results, and as I've said, there's disproportionate experiences, particularly of experiencing abuse, harassment, bullying and discrimination. And those staff groups are experiencing more of that by as much as 10% compared to the staff groups that don't share those characteristics. So for some areas, this is a very significantly different experience of working at Sherwood, and we want to reduce that disparate experience. The NETS survey is also providing evidence for us of discrimination, which has been experienced by some of our trainees. We monitor Datix incidents that are reported, so this is why we are always encouraging you to report, and when you do report, please detail in the narrative that this was an incident that was motivated, if you like, by a protected characteristic, because that helps us to identify where these issues are and provide appropriate support. But between the 12-month period, August 24 and August 25, we had 53 incidents that related to abusive behaviour targeted towards the groups that I've just described. And they're the ones that we know about where the narrative has been clear that this was a racist or homophobic or ableism incident. And we also have lived experiences, and we absolutely acknowledge that it takes great courage to speak about really poor experiences that you have at work, but we always encourage people to do that. We provide safe spaces for people to do that through our staff networks. And we do hear these lived experience stories through staff networks, but also through our EDI events. And we have colleagues who will share with us in confidence feedback from incidents that they've witnessed, or indeed stories that they have been told. So we have plenty of evidence to support that this is an approach and a way that we need to move forward with this work. We decided against a strategic approach for this particular work. We have our people strategy, which very clearly outlines the Trust's commitment to EDI. Our trust strategy also talks about inclusive workplaces, and our care values talk about inclusion also. So there's lots of messages already in our existing strategies, which we are fully supportive of helping the organisation achieve those strategic aims. So with No Hate Here, we have an action plan, and I will talk to you about what the summary of those actions are in a little while, but I'm just going to hand over to Amelia to talk to you a little bit about how to recognise hate so that you can support us in reducing these kinds of incidents in the organisation. Over to you, Amelia.
So recognizing hate can sometimes be really difficult. In some circumstances, it's really clear for us to see hate, but actually in other circumstances, it can be a little bit more difficult. Hate can sometimes be really subtle, so we might see hate through microaggressions, and in some cases, hate may even be normalized. So what are some of the signs to look out for? So you might notice that some people are excluded, whether that be from meetings or decisions or discussions. People can be dismissive through their body language and their tone towards certain people. And these are some of the more covert things that we might notice going on, but overtly we might see things like people being overly criticised or micromanaged. You might hear assumptions that people are making about somebody's ability or their background or their identity. You might hear verbal abuse or slurs being happening that are often driven by stereotypes. In some instances, you might see threatening or intimidating behaviour, specifically violence and aggression, and you might even hear dehumanising language being used or labels to refer to people that are dehumanising. And in some instances, this hate will be a hate crime. So a hate crime is defined as any criminal offence that is perceived by the victim or any person who is a witness to the offence to be motivated by a person's race, religion, sexual orientation, disability, or the person being transgender. It's really important to note that this can also be based on a perception of these characteristics. So if somebody experiences a hate crime based on the perception that they have a disability, but they don't actually have a disability, that would still be considered a hate crime because the perpetrator perceives them to have a disability. So hate crime might include things like threatening behaviour, assault, whether that's physical or verbal, robbery, damage to property, inciting others to commit hate crimes, harassment, or online abuse. But importantly, some hate won't always amount to a crime, and in some instances we might have what we call a hate incident. So again, this is based on a person's race, religion, sexual orientation, disability, or a person being transgender. And this would be another event that wouldn't be considered as a crime, so it would be a non-crime incident. And things like this might include verbal or online insults such as taunting, offensive posters, abusive gestures, things like bullying and microaggressions as well. And this is where sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to recognise the hate that might be going on around us. Back over to you, Ali.
Sorry, I've put my mic on, that helps, doesn't it? So it's really important that when we have experienced a hate crime, whether you're a witness or a victim of that, that it's reported. Reporting is absolutely crucial, and we do understand that it can be daunting to report incidents, but we do encourage people to report hate incidents to the police, and you can do that in a number of ways. So if you're reporting a crime that's in progress or someone is in immediate danger, always we would endorse calling 999. In a non-emergency situation, 101 can be called, and also if you're not comfortable about reporting an incident over the telephone, you can report in person at a police station, the local police station, and you can also report hate crime online. I will pop into the chat as well a link to Nottinghamshire Police's hate crime website. So they've got some web pages which are really helpful in terms of understanding hate crime from the police point of view, but also those links to reporting and how to report a hate crime. So we would absolutely encourage people to do that. What I would also say for victims of crime and criminal offences is that the Trust will absolutely support any colleague who wishes to prosecute and press charges. Obviously, the prosecution decision is not ours to make as an organisation, but we will support any staff member who wishes to press charges in the event that they are the victim of a crime. And you can speak to your line manager about that to start those levels of support. But we, Amelia and I know other colleagues, our staff networks, we have colleagues who will be absolutely with you and will support you in that very daunting prospect, but we will be there for you if you choose to proceed with pressing charges. In terms of reporting here at Sherwood, what do we want you to do if you are a victim of this or you witness this? Obviously, in an immediate situation where there is danger to people, property, etc., please do call security. And equally, if it's a very severe incident that's playing out, in addition to calling security, we would encourage you to call the police as well and use your judgment about whether that is necessary. But if something's in progress, please call security so that they can support in that event. If you witness hate, again, if it's happening and you're a witness to something that is actively taking place, please call security. After an event, please report to your line manager or the most senior person who is in charge of that shift, and that includes out of hours as well. You know, we need to make sure that these reports are happening at all times of the day and night so that appropriate support can be signposted to individuals. We do ask you to report the incident via Datix. And again, if you and I know Datix is a bit of a drawn out process to complete a Datix form, but in that narrative, if you are able to note in the notes that you make that this was that the abuse that's been suffered was motivated by hate, that's very helpful for us, and it helps us to ensure that you're getting the right support at the right time when you need it. You can also report the incident to myself and Amelia, and again I'll pop our email in the chat function so that if you want to reach out to us to share an experience that you've had or to report an incident, then we would encourage you to do that. And you can also report incidences to the People Services team. We acknowledge that sometimes the abuse that colleagues are suffering is from other colleagues, and we would encourage people to contact our People Services team where that is the case. Additional areas where you can get support, Amelia's going to share some information towards the end of our presentation, but certainly linking with our professional nurse and midwifery advocates, Freedom to Speak Up Guardian, Kerry Bosworth, and we have a whole team of Freedom to Speak Up champions in the organisation who are there for you. Wellbeing champions, they're very well embedded in the organisation, they're there to support you. Staff networks, equally, we've got 7 staff networks across the organisation now, and certainly for the staff groups that we've identified through this presentation, there are staff networks available for you, so you can touch base with colleagues who share protected characteristics, allies who are wanting to support you and others at work. And also our occupational health team, you can contact them for TRIM, which is the trauma management process. So there's an awful lot of support here at Sherwood, and one of the things that Amelia and I are committed to doing alongside our violence Reduction and Sexual Safety Working Group is making sure that all of this support is easily accessible to you and that you can get it in the moment when you need it. So I talked earlier about taking an action-focused approach with No Hate Here. So some of the things to just make you aware of that we're working through for the remainder of this year. We've been working on No Hate Here pretty much for this whole strategic year. It's been a priority for Amelia and I, and we've been looking forward to launching this campaign with you during National Hate Crime Awareness Week. So we will continue to raise awareness of this campaign. If you want us to come and talk to your team, if you want us to join you at a team meeting to talk to you more about what you can do and how you can support us, or you're a leader and you feel that you need some help navigating incidents when they happen and how you support staff, please contact us, and again I will drop our email into the chat. We'll ensure that support resources and escalation processes are easily accessible for all colleagues. We're going to work in collaboration with the Violence Reduction and Sexual Safety Working Group on key actions, and that will include reviewing, clarifying the management of patients who don't have capacity, and also how we manage poor behaviour from young people, ongoing training for managers and colleagues. What does that look like? How can we achieve that training gap in these difficult times? But also we'll be looking at behaviour management and the consequences for perpetrators of hate and all forms of violence and abuse in the organisation. And then we'll also be supporting the facilitation of a Sherwood Stories Schwartz Round on the 18th of November. I would really strongly encourage colleagues to look out for details of that in the bulletin. It will be a Microsoft Teams event, and we are going to be hearing from a colleague who will be sharing their experience of racism at work. So it's a very courageous thing to do, but I really hope that by one person starting that narrative and sharing their experience, that more people will take comfort in the fact that we do care as an organisation. We are committed to supporting you and minimising the abuse that is being suffered by colleagues on a daily basis. And I hope that that will be an opportunity to start the conversation with you. If you've not reached out to anybody before, if you're on this call and you've experienced abuse, hate abuse, that you will see that we do care about you. We are listening, we are hearing what you're telling us, and we are trying to take appropriate actions. And we'd love to hear from you in terms of how we can support you, because this is a collaboration. This is not about me and Amelia saying we need to do this. We are listening to colleagues to put together actions that will, we hope, make a difference for you. No Hate Here is also due to be launched publicly this week. So our comms team, thank you so much, have been working behind the scenes on some communication which will go externally in the organisation as well. So in addition to messages to you as colleagues, there's some messages for our citizens as well in this, that this behaviour is not acceptable, and we would ask each and every one of you to share those social media posts as you see them, so that we can really broaden our reach with this message. Back over to you, Amelia.
So No Hate Here really needs the support of every single person in our organisation to be a success. And there are several ways that we are asking you to be part of this movement at the moment. So we've currently got 2 training offers. We've got our active bystander training and our allyship training. So we can come to you and deliver this training in your pre-existing meeting spaces. So active bystander training is about empowering our people to feel confident in identifying harmful behaviour, but also giving them the tools to be able to intervene in a safe way and de-escalate a situation to prevent any further harm. And this training is all about creating a community of people that are working towards creating positive culture change for our organisation. So this active bystander training is something that we're offering across the entire organisation at the moment. We've already delivered it to over 200 colleagues, but it's a really important way of how we can get all of our colleagues involved in No Hate Here. It's giving you the tools to recognise harmful behaviour when it's happening and to take some action. And that's ultimately what we need to achieve from No Hate Here. And then we have our allyship training, which again, we can come to your team meetings and deliver and talk through. So allyship training explores the importance of belonging here at Sherwood, which is something that we're always striving towards. It looks at what allyship is, and it also provides the opportunity for us to understand and explore bias, microaggressions, and privilege. So these two training sessions are really complementary of one another, and they're a fantastic way that all of our colleagues across the organisation can start that journey and getting involved in supporting our No Hate Here campaign over the next few weeks and months. Importantly, obviously today we've discussed some really sensitive issues, and as Ali has said, some colleagues on the call may have experienced some of this type of behaviour themselves. So it's really important for us to just put on screen the support that's available here at Sherwood, and we'd encourage anybody that does need that support to reach out to the people on the screen to get that support. And of course, as the EDI team, Ali and I's email is always open to anybody that wants any support, but also if they just want to discuss No Hate Here a little bit more, what we're trying to achieve, and what the future of No Hate Here looks like, and what we want, how we want everyone in our organisation to get involved. Ali and I are always there, and you can contact us on the email address on the screen, and that Ali will be putting in the chat box as well.
Wow.
Thank you.
An awful lot there, an awful lot of information. Just encourage people to put questions into the Q&A and we'll try and get to those. I don't know how to follow that really. What I would say is all that way back when Darren, when he told the story of racial abuse as one of our, what we would now call resident doctors, by one of our patients. And you know, I recognise, I talk to people when they start my organisation, I recognise that we are a very diverse organisation. I'm proud to work in a diverse organisation, gives us that diversity of thought, gives that diversity of deed. But I think if I've got this right, and you'll correct me, about 20% of our workforce comes from diverse backgrounds, whereas the population that we serve, it's only about 3% or something along those sort of lines. So we've got that immediate disconnect. But Darren, his story, that powerful story, no one was interested in it until he's, you know, talked to me, and then we took it forward. No one stood up for him. No one spoke up for him or with him. And I think you described all of that and that journey, and and how we've taken the feedback from the staff survey and turned it into hopefully a call to action for this. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that we have come away from that initial, you know, lack of support, lack of voice for him, and I think people are challenging more, but there is still a lot more work to do.
Yeah, and I particularly liked that it was one of your last slides, because I was going to ask you about microaggression. I remember one of my medical colleagues saying to me, I get microaggression every day. So there's something about calling out incivility, I think you described it as, because before it becomes microaggression, and then calling out microaggression before it becomes hate crime. I think that's a good way to think of it. Okay, now the question I'm going to ask you, and then I've got one in the chat, is social media and hate crime, because we sort of almost, in that whole presentation, you talked a bit about probably face to face, and I think we're all conscious that social media can be a bit of a bear pit. Anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, there's a lot on social media, and I think it would be wrong of me to say that in looking at the evidence for No Hate Here, that both Amelia and I are not blind to what is on social media, and we're very aware of some of the movements that are very loud on social media. But I think from a point of view of Sherwood, and as all colleagues at Sherwood, we need to be mindful of what is on social media and how we might respond to that. And we do have a social media policy that applies to colleagues, and I think I would just encourage people to be mindful of their own content in what are difficult times, and there's a lot out there on social media at the moment. So I just encourage colleagues to be careful and to be mindful of who they work with, maybe not even in their own team, but the wider organisation, and just be kind and mindful.
And we've got a question, I think, that's around that point. It says there's a lot of polarizing views in the media at the moment, and that's certainly true with what's going on in the Middle East, but these conversations spill over into work. When does free speech become hate speech?
And I think, yeah, there are polarizing views, and it is difficult, and I think it becomes hate speech when it incites hatred, violence, or discrimination against individuals and their protected characteristics. And I thank Debbie for her support in that response, because we have to be mindful always that discrimination is unlawful in employment under the Equality Act of 2010, and there is a protected characteristic of belief. So people are entitled to their beliefs, and I think we just have to be respectful. We have to be mindful that what we're talking about must not incite hatred or violence or encourage any kind of abuse against other colleagues in the organisation, and particularly against protected characteristic groups, because that is when free speech could potentially become a problem.
Yeah, and I think you said it in the presentation. So, as an organisation, we want everyone to be themselves, bring the best version of themselves to work. That's what we want. But I think, if I've got this right, you said that people who had protected characteristics, LGBTQ plus or disabled characteristics, they were 10% more likely to suffer from hate.
Yeah, and so the disproportionate groups in particular are ethnic minority groups, disabled colleagues, and LGBTQ plus colleagues. That's where the disparate experience is, and it ranges from abuse, whether that be discrimination, bullying, or harassment. It ranges from 7% more to 10% more.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of a scale of difference, but it's different.
That was a telling statistic for me. So I suspect we could talk about this all afternoon, but I'll just encourage people to put any more questions in the Q&A. But with time moving on, I'm going to go to Debbie. We'll probably come back to, I think, Ali and Amelia. But Debbie, you're going to talk to us about Mars. We've done a Mars. What's all this about?
We have done a Mars. Thank you, Dave, and afternoon, everybody. So we have done a Mars. As you're aware, back in July, we launched a Mars scheme. And the feedback that we've received from you, our people, from leaders is, had people known then what they know now, they may have applied. And actually we've been had information and feedback saying, and questions, are we running a further Mars? So we reviewed that, and as you know, we've got some significant financial pressures and significant financial targets, along with supporting services to transform and supporting with efficiency and supporting services to provide more efficiently and effectively. So we've listened, and as a result of that, we have, as an organisation, decided to facilitate and launch a further Mars scheme. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So what we are proposing, the scheme principles are the same as we've previously outlined. Mars scheme is a nationally recognised scheme, so we can't deviate from the eligibility criteria and the severance payment, etc. But what Mars does is presents an opportunity where individuals can apply to leave the organisation voluntarily. This is completely voluntary, and they will receive a severance payment as a result of that application if it is supported. As I've identified the eligibility criteria and the payment in terms of the severance payment is set nationally, and therefore we can't deviate from that. So the scheme is exactly the same as it was previously. So it's for all bands that are non-patient facing, and we propose to open, or we will be opening the scheme on Monday the 20th of October. Communications have commenced today, with applications being received by individuals by Monday the 10th of November. So the scheme will be open for 3 weeks, and then managers have to complete a section on the application form, and managers will have until the 13th of November to get the applications into the Mars inbox. So the scheme is exactly the same as previously. Individuals need to have a minimum of 12 months continuous service with the organisation, and the severance payment is up to a maximum of 12 months salary, but that is capped at 80,000. As I've outlined, the applications are for colleagues in non-patient facing roles of all bands, and applications must be able to demonstrate long-term improvement in terms of the trust financial position, and creates an opportunity for transformation. As previously, it is completely voluntary, and it isn't a redundancy. We've got a dedicated intranet site that has all the FAQs and a copy of the scheme, which we have had nationally approved. We've updated the FAQs. It has a copy of the application form on there. We have also continued to have the Mars inbox where individuals can direct some specific questions, and we've got a number of drop-in dates that individuals and line managers can access if they have any questions regarding Mars. So effectively it opens on Monday if people want to apply for the Mars scheme. Happy to take any questions.
That's really clear. Thank you, Debbie. So if I capture this is the key bit here, is that this is an opportunity for us to enact transformation across our teams by creating movement, I guess would be a phrase I might use. Yep. And it's that ability for us to think differently about how we organize our teams and we our teams work. And that's the key behind all of this. It's the same as the previous Mars process. It's got to be mutually agreed. So I've just got a couple of questions.
Yep.
One was, what happens if you've previously thought about it, but you've withdrawn your application? So you maybe said, oh, I'm thinking about it, and then you decided not to. And then what happens if you previously put an application in, but it wasn't mutually agreed?
You could apply. So individuals who applied previously, was approved, but then withdrew their application for whatever reason, they can apply again. Individuals whose previous application was rejected, of course, they can apply again. This is a new application which will be assessed at the Mars panel independently.
And it'll be assessed again. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I've got this right, the reason it can be different is it depends on who else applies. So if you had a team of 4 and 4 people applied for Mars, you're unlikely to get 4 successful applications. But if you had a team of 4 and 1 person applied, then that may be a different environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, and okay. That's why we have a Mars panel that has that umbrella overview and then undertakes that risk assessment and makes the decisions whether applications are approved or not.
Okay, I've got some questions that have come in. It says, would you be able to confirm how many people have used the scheme and how much did the trust save on this?
So in terms of the individuals who have left or are leaving as a result of the previous Mars scheme, it's just over 35 whole-time equivalents, more heads, but just over 35 whole-time equivalents. In terms of cost savings, we're still calculating that through, but it's in the region of between 1 to 1.3 million that we think that it will save, but ultimately services are still working through that transformation at the moment, so that figure it may change.
That's clear. It said, what did staff wish they knew then that they know now? It will be interesting to know people's reasons for wanting to take Mars now rather than the last scheme. So that's some of that learning, isn't it?
It is. It's some of that learning, and clearly the Mars in July was the first time we'd facilitated a Mars for 15 years. So people were anxious about what did the process look like. There was some question marks around what the severance payment looked like, and also what notice periods look like. So I think that has been clarified as we've worked through the previous Mars.
And if I remember rightly, some colleagues who were thinking about Mars then were just slightly not shocked, but it was actually you will leave on this date, and it was that's the date you're going to leave, and it was just making sure that people had sight of that beforehand.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the last question I've got is, can clinical staff who are working in non-patient roles apply? So can clinical staff working in non-patient roles?
Yes, so how we've defined it and what's been approved is that individuals in non-patient facing roles, we don't distinguish whether that's non-clinical or clinical, but the distinction is around that individuals have to be in a non-patient facing role.
And in effect, that's the idea of the panel and the line manager support, that if you've got any concerns, recommend a conversation and you put that in the chat.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. That all seems very clear. And so it's going to be open when?
Monday. So applications, so the application for the website, the intranet site is there now, and I'm sure Liv will pop the website detail, intranet site, link in the chat. The application form will be on there as well, but applications can't be submitted until the 10th. The process is the same. There's an application. Line managers need to have completed the application. Managers need to have submitted it by the 13th. A bit of the learning that we took previously is we just put a hard date on it, and managers were saying they wanted opportunity to get all the applications in to fill in potentially where the cost savings and transformations would be. So that's why there's a distinction from individuals applying, submitting by the 10th, and the managers submitting by the 13th of November.
And we've got it open for a shortish period of time. I think you said 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Why don't we leave it open for 6 months?
Well, we can't. So the national scheme is really clear that you can only have a window open for a specific length of time.
Okay. And there's something also that everyone who goes through this process, that we need to, again, by national direction, we need to provide them with legal advice. Is that right?
That's right. So if individuals apply and are successful, individuals will be supported to obtain independent legal advice. As part of the exit, individuals have to sign a settlement agreement, and as part of that they will get independent legal advice, which we will pay up to a maximum of £400 plus VAT. We have got an independent solicitor that we can identify for individuals. Alternatively, individuals can identify their own independent solicitor, but we will only pay up to a maximum of £400 plus VAT for that advice.
Perfect. Okay. I can't see any other questions, but I know there's a whole host of FAQs that were really helpful for people last time. We'll put that into the chat. Can't see any other questions for Ali or Amelia, so I might just go round and just get Ali and Amelia's final thoughts. Something about doing your staff survey, I would think, because this is the sort of impact that we can have. We can make some change if people tell us where we need to make change. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we would support colleagues completing the staff survey. And as you said, Dave, it is anonymous. So, tell us what's happening. Make sure that if you do respond in the survey, you respond in a way that truly reflects the experience that you're having here, because we do look at it. We do And Amelia and I as well, we actually look at staff survey data through a protected characteristic lens. So we're able to do that. And obviously if people don't respond, if they don't do the equality monitoring that's part of the staff survey, and I know sometimes people don't take much pleasure in doing that, but actually for us that helps to really give us a picture of what is truly happening in the organisation. And I suppose with that in mind as well, if colleagues can make sure that their ESR data, their personal data on ESR reflects the equality monitoring that they might submit on their staff survey, because one of the areas where we do see a huge difference in the numbers is for disabled colleagues. We see far more people noting a disability through the equality monitoring on the staff survey versus what we actually see on ESR. But this is about us seeing the picture of the diversity of our colleagues. This is not about your manager knowing that you've got a disability when you don't want them to know, or that you've got a long-term health condition that you don't want people to know about. It's not about managers or other colleagues in your team knowing that you identify as LGBTQ+ when you want that to be confidential. ESR is confidential. So I suppose for us it would be about, yes, do the staff survey, but just as a reminder, if you complete the equality monitoring there, and please do, because that's helpful for us, please also just have a look at your ESR and make sure that that's up to date as well, because that's really helpful for us as a team.
Okay, that's helpful. Debbie, I've got one last question for you. It says, can you postpone leaving until April so to minimise the tax implications?
No, unfortunately not. So once the panel meets on the 21st of November is what we're proposing, notice will be served to individuals who have been successful in terms of their application week commencing the 24th of November. Notice will be either contractual or statutory notice, whichever is the greatest, but that is in the FAQs.
Yeah. Any last thoughts from you, Debbie? I was going to say, I think, can I say this? I think I can. Definitely, we won't be running a third Mars scheme in 25-26.
No, we won't. No, we won't be running a further Mars scheme 25-26. So, yeah, this is it for this financial year. If individuals do want to consider their personal circumstances and if they want to apply for Mars, don't forget, if you apply for Mars, until such point as that settlement agreement is signed, that is the absolute when it is confirmed individuals are leaving the organisation.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. My last thing to just say to you all is go get your flu jab. Seriously, best way you can protect yourself this winter. Okay, that's a bumper, nearly an hour of a staff brief. I'll be being told off by the comms team, but Ali, Amelia, thank you so much for that really powerful messages there, really helpful. And Debbie, thank you for all of your expert advice and guidance. Thanks everyone, have a good rest of the day.